Warning.
This is not a test.
Warning.
This is the initiation of the retiree early warning system. This is not a test.
Warning.
Welcome to the Retirement Answer Man Show. My name is Roger Whitney.
Warning.
I am your host, and this is a show dedicated to helping you not just survive
Warning.
retirement. We want you to rock retirement.
Warning.
There is a virus lurking in the pre-retirement community
Warning.
that we need to address. It can spring up suddenly with vicious impact, usually at a weekend RV show. Once it takes hold, it can cause obsessive,
Warning.
even irrational thoughts, and in some cases,
Warning.
financial suicide. But if diagnosed and managed, it can actually create some of the greatest go-go years of retirement ever seen. So we got to diagnose this. We got to address this RV virus this month on the Retirement Answer Man Show. But we can't do any of that before the all-important disclaimer. I need a warning on this as well, right? Don't take advice from me on this show. We're going to diagnose and help you deal with this vicious but potentially amazing virus, the RV virus, this month on the Retirement Answer Man Show. But you got to think of this as helpful hints and education before you make any decisions or self-diagnosis and treatment plan. Consult your financial advisor, your legal advisor, or your tax advisor, because that's just common sense. Now, let's go define what kind of vicious virus we're dealing with in the Hot Topic segment. I had to implement the early warning system because the RV virus, the recreational vehicle virus, is particularly acute in baby boomers heading into or living in retirement. So let's look at the stats. 75 million households in this country actively camp, according to Campgrounds of America's annual report. The National Park Service reported overnight visits in tents or RVs last year hit their highest level in 20 years. Most of those RVs are owned, here, listen to this, are owned by baby boomers more than any other group. This is the fastest growing segment of the RV market, according to the Recreational Vehicle Association. You can see how this could be an epidemic, this RV virus, with you, my friend, a baby boomer getting ready to rock retirement. So we got to deal with this. And that's what we're going to do this entire month on the Retirement Answer Man Show. We are going to talk about, this week, identifying the virus. Next week, what the true cost of succumbing to the recreational vehicle virus, as it is known. The week after that, we're going to talk about some antidotes or alternatives to the RV lifestyle. Some way to get that fix, but to not go all the way in. And then in week 4 of this series, we're going to hear stories from the road of people that actually have succumbed to the RV virus, but are doing it successfully and having some amazing go-go years as a result. Now, in actuality, the way this is going to work is each week we are going to hear a story from someone living actively with the RV virus. So we can learn from their experience so we can harness this potential threat and turn it into a huge opportunity if we have the right treatment plan in place. So I think that's pretty exciting. So that's the layout of what we're going to be doing in this entire month of March as we talk about the RV virus. Now, when I talk to listeners of the show, people like you, or survey, and I ask them, what are the things that you look forward most to in retirement? Here's what I get. Number 1 is freedom to do what I want, to have some time freedom. Number 2 is travel. Travel is definitely the number one priority for most people. And the RV virus, if you get caught with the RV virus, you can accomplish both of those things, right? You can have freedom to do what you want when you want, and you can travel and see this amazing country. So it combines both of those top priorities that a lot of baby boomers have, so we can see why it's such a potent virus. According to virtually every survey you see, baby boomers rank travel as their number one discretionary expenditure, and RVs are a natural extension of that discretionary spending. So what types of travel or strains are there in this RV virus that we're talking about? Well, it can range anywhere from, the weekenders, someone that has a pop-up or something simple that they go out and just, go visit a state park or some beautiful place on the weekends. Then we have the 2 to 3 times a year, maybe do a extended trip of 3 to 4 days, to some long-termers that will maybe go a month or two on the road. You can see how this virus can take hold. And then, probably the most powerful strand in terms of taking over your life are people that actually live the RV life and actually do not own a home. They are full-time, all the time RVers. We're going to talk about each one of these strands, and we are going to talk to people that are living with these strands to learn from them so we can figure out how to manage this to help us make the right decision if this is something that we have an interest in doing. I think this is going to be an exciting show. We're talking to some amazing people. Virtually all of them are part of the Rock Retirement Club, and we're having our own discussions in there of building resources of how do you actually do this so we can all learn from each other. And you're going to get a glimpse to some of the people and their stories and their tips to help you along as well. So I think before we get to our first conversation, let's talk about self-diagnosis. Let's talk about how do you diagnose yourself when you're thinking or romanticizing this RV lifestyle in whatever strain you're thinking that you might succumb to. There's an interesting thing that when we get attracted to something like traveling in the RV, the first thing when you're self-diagnosing yourself is to determine, am I really trying to capture the feeling, or is it the actual travel in the RV that is pulling me? Because a lot of times we want to recreate a feeling, but we associate it with the vehicle, in this case, literal vehicle, to create that feeling, when you could actually create that feeling potentially in a lot more reasonable from a spending standpoint or less intrusive way. And we're going to talk about that in week 3 when we talk about antidotes, some way to get the feeling of that having freedom, being able to travel without having to actually do the RV lifestyle in terms of purchasing and everything else. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's important to understand which one is driving you. Is it the image of what you want to feel, the experience that you want, or is it the actual lifestyle that you want? We don't want to create a mismatch there because that might not lead to the right decision. And then secondly, and this is sort of related, is it's easy to romanticize something. It's easy to let in, you go to an RV show, which they're fun to go to. If you've never been to an RV show, go. Just be careful. When you go there, you're walking in them and you can see yourself and you can think of the two of you on the road for a year at a time and the cool experiences you have. Once this kind of little virus or the seed of it, or the germ of it, I guess, takes hold, it can grow really quickly, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But what ends up happening is as it grows, this RV virus, it's very easy to get tunnel vision early in that this is the only solution to create the vision or the dream that you've created in your mind. Now, if you listen to the stories over the next 4 weeks, you'll hear how they tested and how they really made sure that it was what they wanted before they jumped all in and succumbed to the virus in full force. So I think that's an important thing that we understand because it's easy to let these things just start taking off and nobody reassess. Is this really what we want? And usually that will manifest itself when it's sitting there a year or two later, hardly ever used. Exercise equipment is a great parallel to this of a lot of the motivations behind buying the Stairmaster or the, whatever. You create everything, but then you never actually use it. We want to try to avoid that, and I think these stories can help you do that. So this is what we're doing. This is going to be a good month. This is going to be fun. Now let's go talk to our first couple. So this week and every week this month in our practical planning segment, we're going to have a conversation with someone that is living actively the RV lifestyle. And this week we're going to talk to Michael and Mona and learn a little bit about their journey and get some of their tips so they can maybe help you create a treatment plan that's right for you. So let's talk to Mike and Mona. All right, so I'm here with Mike and Mona. Hi, guys.
Hey, how you doing?
Now, you are living the RV life, correct?
That is right.
All right. So where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Is that what the phrase is?
Good question. We haven't found her.
Okay. Well, you're on the search for. So roughly, where are you guys currently?
We are currently in Fort Myers, Florida. We stopped by to visit with family down here.
Okay. And you guys live way up in the Northeast. So it's a good move being in Florida right now.
We're watching all the snow back home and not feeling too sorry for folks.
So let's sort of set the basis here. How long have you been traveling in an RV?
We bought the current one in 2016, and we've been short trips back and forth. But in this February, we finally took off on what's going to be a 4 to 5 month RV trip.
Okay.
We
so
hope.
A big one. Okay.
Yes.
And so when did you, quote unquote, retire? So if you bought that in 16, when did you pull the plug on full-time work?
So I retired at the end of September last year, 2018.
Okay. You were testing out the RV lifestyle a little bit beforehand.
Pretty much.
What's the pull to hit the road now that you're retired?
We talked about it for a while. We enjoyed going out for weekends and short trips, but we always had to come back for work. And that got a little frustrating because you'd go someplace you like to stay and explore. And we talked about taking a long trip and just seeing the national parks. There's a lot to see in this country. There's a lot of freedom that comes with not having to necessarily pack suitcases and travel. You kind of drive to where you are, you sit and go. And so that was very appealing to both of us.
So have you seen a lot of America already?
A bit.
Yeah, hope to see more.
We did a trial run, actually. I gave my boss an ultimatum. He had to give me an extra time off, and we went out to see Grand Tetons and Yellowstone Park last year for a long trip. I think all that did was kind of emphasize that we wanted to do this more.
Yeah, if you go to the Grand Teton area, that's definitely a thing that's going to make you want to do more.
Gorgeous, yes.
So you've been doing this for a while. So do you have kids? Did you camp when they were younger, or did you camp as a couples throughout your working career?
We did a little bit as a couple, but mostly we had a pop-up trailer, and we have grandkids, and we would take them out for a couple of weeks every year. And so we'd done that for, 10, 15 years. I mean, as kids, we both camped. But I think with the grandkids, we pretty much try to go a couple weeks every year. And 2 weeks just wasn't long enough to go. We wanted to go longer than that.
So I guess we'll characterize the pop-up as the gateway drug.
Yeah, pretty much.
Full addiction. Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we had a pop-up when I was a kid, and we kind of started that way.
Okay.
And to be honest,
originally we started out in tents. We got married and we started out in tents and then progressed from tent to pop-up.
Yeah, our honeymoon was basically a 3-week camping adventure. I wouldn't recommend that as a honeymoon idea. But we had a lot of fun. It had its moment.
Okay, so you guys are outdoor type of people just by nature. If that was your honeymoon, that was... Where was that trip, by the way?
We went up north. We got married in June, and we went up north through New York into Canada. We happened to pick the middle of black fly season to visit New York. And
bad mistake.
That was not one of my better moves.
And the marriage survived, which is
good. What is wrong with this picture is the quote that I remember.
So you've been outdoors. Now, how would you characterize yourself? I think there are different strands of the RV virus, right? So you're not full-time, sold the house. So are you full-timers? Are you long-term? Are you short, medium trips or weekenders? How would you characterize your strand?
I would say we're kind of in transition. We've had a discussion. I've kind of suggested throwing out and just going full-time.
I still want a little hub.
So
just something to call home to go back to from time to time.
I think this trip's going to kind of help us make a decision. 2-week trips sometimes are way too short. Weekends are too short. And so whether we go full-time, I anticipate that we'll do more of this, unless she decides that living in an 8-foot by 12-foot box with me for extended period is what she wants to deal with. But I think that's kind of where we're headed, where we do a lot more longer trips.
What's the tipping point in your mind to where it doesn't make sense to have a house anymore, though? To have that hub, as Mona talked about.
Can we get rid of the sentimental stuff?
Yeah.
What do you do with the heirlooms and some of the other things? And there is merit to having a base to go back to kind of, if you got repairs, you get caught up. But I think the stuff that we have, some things, what do you do with them? And I think that's been the discussion of, what we're going to do.
We started getting rid of a lot of the stuff, but there's, like Mike said, there's a couple things that were handed down to us that are sentimental from grandparents, and it's not ready to just toss them out, So.
Well, I imagine there's a little bit of that legacy thing of, I think of my grandfather, and I have just a few things that weren't tossed, and they were meaningless to me at the time that he was alive, and now they're like precious to me. So some of these things that may be meaningless to you for your grandkids or your kids, they could be something really important. Those stories, that's how those stories keep getting told about family, right? Yeah, that's hard. That's hard. But beyond the heirlooms, why would you, is it an economic calculus on why even keep a house? Or is it, I'm still curious as to the logic of even blowing up the hub or getting rid of it.
Yeah, I think we're probably on different sides of the fence. I'm kind of in favor of just going full time. But I think, and again, part of it maybe is community. We got a lot of family that lives around us. So to come back, just kind of a place for that. I think economically, if we wanted to do it, it would probably be much better just to live full time. But again, it's probably not a real big trade. It depends on what you're paying for your house and where you live, things like that.
Have you considered making it income property of some sort, whether it's a full-time rental or a VRBO while you're gone type of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Actually, one of your shows that you had about, some of those rental things kind of got us talking about it, but I'm not sure we're at the point yet where we're ready to rent our house out and have people come in. And especially, again, we got, family heirloom, things like that. So I don't think we're quite at that point yet. I don't know if we'll get there or not. Well, I think this trip is really we're going to learn a lot. This is really our first time to go out. We'll spend 4 to 5 months on the road. I mean, we don't really have a defined return date, sometime June, July. The only real appointment is we have to be in Iowa for my niece's graduation in May. Other than that, it's wide open.
Okay.
So we'll have better answers for that when we get back, I think.
Yeah, and I'll be curious, too, of humans are habits, right? Habits create comfort in a lot of ways. And it would seem like you would sort of not have a rhythm or a routine of life in full time. Have you noticed any of that yet?
I don't know. I think we kind of fall into routine when we get somewhere. You have a lot of flexibility, but each day you kind of get into a little bit of a routine for it. So I haven't really noticed that.
I haven't either.
Okay. So let's dive into the cold, hard facts. What is, and you don't have to give me specifics if you don't want to, give me some idea of the true cost to start to move up from a pop-up to, I don't know what class you have, give me some of the dynamics of that.
All right. So we bought a Class C, which is a smaller RV. It's, built on a truck chassis. And we weren't actually looking for it. We looked at them beforehand and weren't really interested, but we happened to run into a RV show and see one of these there. We both kind of fell in love with it, and that kind of got us started. It's certainly a huge jump up in cost because, obviously fuel is a big part of that cost. And so, you go from pulling a trailer and getting maybe 15 miles to a gallon to driving an RV, you're getting 8 maybe on a good day. The cost for staying at a campground depends a lot on where you stay. Private campgrounds are more expensive, but you've got $30, $40 a night. If you stay for a week, it goes down. Stay for a month, it's cheaper. So the cost between the two are kind of comparable there. The other part is, the more stuff you have, you're driving a house. So you have some more maintenance issues that may come up. Ours is new, so we haven't had too many problems. But it's like maintaining your house. The pop-up was pretty simple. It didn't have a refrigerator or bathroom or anything like that. Very little to go wrong. There's definitely more that can go on the Class C. So that's been part of it. Insurance is a little higher. Could be a lot higher for it.
So Class
then
C,
you got whatever maintenance.
So you say a truck chassis. So you're talking pickup truck chassis or semi-truck chassis?
No. Well, you can get them on, you can now actually get them on semi-chassis, some of the bigger ones. But most of them are built on like a Ford or Dodge, like an E-Van, E350, E450. That's typical for the Class Cs.
Okay. What do they run? Yeah, give me a range of new for those.
So new. So you can go anywhere new from, 60,000 to couple 100,000, depending on how many amenities you want. If you go to diesel, then you could add probably, $80 to $100,000 to the cost. So especially the ones on the big Freightliner chassis, you're basically buying a semi truck. So you're putting some bucks in for that.
So how many square feet is yours?
So ours is 26 feet long. So it's 8 by 20 living area. So it's 160. It's not a lot. You learn how to organize a store. Although I have to say it's much better than the pop-up.
Yeah.
The big thing is you have to unfold it and unpack all the time. It's right there. You get up, things are in closets. They're easier to get to. So there's a lot of convenience that goes with it. And that's one of the things that we like.
And so how big is your house, roughly?
Ooh. House is probably closer to 3,200 square feet. So
okay, so from 32 to maybe 200.
You got to get rid of a lot of stuff.
Well, yeah, and I'm thinking about that because I'm in my house and we're in the middle of decluttering. We're empty nesters and getting out some kid stuff. But there's so much stuff like, well, I couldn't do without that. I couldn't do without that.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you can do. Do you feel like you're doing without?
Oh, absolutely.
I think so.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, I think we have very little that we don't need or can't get on the road. So it's just kind of a smaller space and, don't necessarily need a whole lot of clothes because we're not doing a lot of fancy stuff. So it's just kind of casual clothes most of the time. And so it doesn't really take a whole lot.
Okay.
Okay.
So the cost for campgrounds, 40 on up, depending per night.
Yeah. It can be cheaper than that if you go to like the state parks and things like that, which are not bad. And also there's a number of services that they have where you can do like driveway sharing. You can stay at somebody's house for free. Harvest Host, where it's a membership type thing where you can get discount memberships and you can really knock that way down if you do it on a long-term basis.
Yeah, and they even have like timeshare concepts of you join an organization and you can go different places. A campground we used to go with the kids switched to that type of structure, I remember.
Yeah, so if you're going to do long-term, then you can really save some money in that area.
Yeah, because logistically, they can get full pretty quick, right? It's a popular deal. So have you had any issues there as of yet?
Our challenge when we came down to Florida was that most folks are down here for a long period of time. So we did have trouble finding a place to stay down here in Florida. But that's really the only time that we had an issue. We drove down and we went through Georgia and the state parks were, half full. I mean, it's not peak season yet, but we really never had a problem finding a place to stay. For the more popular places, like we went to Grand Tetons, Yellowstone, we definitely booked well in advance. But driving along the road, we've never had a problem finding that space. Now, down here, if we were doing that, it might be a little harder because it's very crowded down here this time of year.
Okay. One last thing on the cost I want to ask. So you drove from the Northeast to Florida. Do you know what you paid in gas?
Yeah, ours is gas, yes.
Do you know how much you paid, roughly?
It was probably about $600 for gas. I'd say it's a great time to travel because I think the most we paid was like $2.15 a gallon. One time it was $1.80. So it was probably a lot higher when we took our trip last year. Okay. So
this is a question for each of you individually, and I should have like the other one step out of the room so I can get the true answer. So what? This is the easy part of this question. What have you enjoyed most about the adventure so far of doing this?
I think for me, the simplicity and just being able to just step back, not really in time, but just what normally you would normally do, just more simple life and being able just to appreciate and enjoy the surroundings of what you're seeing.
Okay.
For me, it's been kind of the freedom. And actually, this trip is kind of different. We talked about it for a while. In fact, our plan had been to leave in October, and we had a number of different things that came up that kind of delayed us. And I've always been a bit of a planner. So, when we took our trip last year, I had every night booked out. Everything was scheduled. Day 2, we're driving down the road, and it just kind of hit me that I don't really have anything booked in advance. I don't have a return to have nothing. And just kind of the freedom of, wow, this is kind of nice. I mean, we can go wherever we want to go, stop and do what we want to do. If we like here, we were leaving earlier, we extended our stay. We have no constraints. Yeah, we saw a concert we want to go to, so we just booked a couple of extra nights and we're going to stay and go to the concert. So that freedom that kind of realization is something I really haven't had before. And that's been very enjoyable.
So I'm curious on that one. How much of that is just the knowledge that you could, if you wanted to? How much of the joy is from that? And then how much do you think is actually from doing those random things?
I think probably more is just from doing it. We've always liked, doing, different exploring parks or going and hiking or biking different areas, seeing different things. our last trip, we made it a point of going out and seeing, odd things. So, we saw the world's largest ketchup bottle, the world's largest sewing needle, things like that. Just those kind of random things. And we saw a lot of things we hadn't planned on. It was just a lot of fun. So I think there's a huge part that comes in that. Now I've got time to just kind of, cut off the beaten path and go find those things versus being on a schedule to be somewhere.
What kind of ketchup was it?
I don't know if they had a name brand on it.
I don't think it had a name.
Oh, they need to find a sponsor for maintaining it.
That was a water tower that had been treated. That was in Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay. Take note, friends. Largest ketchup bottle, St. Louis, Missouri. Let's flip it around. What's the thing that's sort of been the most annoying or difficult, other than each other?
Yeah.
That part's been good.
That part's been good.
Ask us in 5 months, right?
yeah. Ask me that at a later date.
I think that the biggest annoyance that I had so far is if you need service, trying to, out of the area, trying to find a place to do that. We had a couple of little things go wrong due to my own fault. And so just trying to, find a service place to deal with those. The Ford dealerships most of them don't deal with RVs. They're too big to get to their shop. So you got to go to one that does commercial truck service and, calling around and trying to get fit. And that's been a little bit of a frustration. It's not like just, going to any place and getting it done. So that's probably my biggest annoyance, I think.
What about you, Mona?
I'd agree. Watching him get upset, probably. But other than that, there really hasn't been any kind of annoyance or problem.
Good.
I don't think.
I imagine that would be hard with service because it's not only finding the right place, but the person you feel comfortable with that you're getting, a straight shooter, right? You're sort of at the mercy.
You're limited.
You learn to trust people more.
And you ask questions. You try to, if you need it, talk to other people that are in the area that have been staying there, like the last place we're at, you talk to the park host. I mean, they're going to tend to know. A lot of times they'll have companies they call if you need service in the park. They have people that they have come in. So they've already kind of vetted them. So that's helpful. But that's more for the house part of it. When you need service on an engine or the vehicle part, then you got to go to either a Ford or a Freightliner or international dealer to do that. That's a little harder.
Yeah. And your house is occupied while it's getting fixed.
That is a challenge. I would add that, we've got a Class C. So when we first started going just in the vehicle by itself, we'd get somewhere. And if you want to travel around the area, we had to kind of, unhook and go. So we actually bought a vehicle to tow. We towed a Jeep Wrangler behind us, which has actually been huge in terms of freedom and what it's done for us. It's been a lot of fun as well. For it. So, but that is that you want to think is you're going to do something with a bigger RV. You may want a tow vehicle or something to get around. So once you hook up, you don't have to unhook the RV. Yeah,
that's a great point. Whether it's a Jeep, some kind of vehicle, even e-bikes. I know people that do e-bikes. You're a little more limited.
Yeah.
E-bikes are good.
So 2 last questions. Well, 3. One's easy. One is, what do you wish you would have known at the beginning of this? What would you have done differently?
I think we looked around a little bit. I wish I'd known a little bit more just about what it takes to maintain and operate an RV. And we might have got a little different style based on what we have right now. Maybe a little more room up front. But the part that comes with actually living in it. And so I think that's probably the one thing. And what we did, and I wish we'd done more of, is visit the RV shows and actually spend a little bit more time looking around. We kind of fell in love with the model and kind of went for that, which is not bad, but that's probably
it's doable.
Yeah. I mean, as you get into it, you start finding out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Then you can start saying, okay, next time, I already got a list of, what do we want next time?
Yeah, it's hard to know until you're in it. It's like your first house, right?
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
And I was going to ask you where you're going to go from here, but I guess I'll couple that. Are you coming through Texas?
We will be, as a matter of fact.
Dallas, Fort Worth area,
we're going to go
up.
We're definitely going through San Antonio. I don't know if we'll make it to Dallas or not.
Okay.
If we do, we'd certainly love to shoot by and say hello.
Yeah, if you're within reasonable driving, I'll figure it out. So let me know when you're heading this way. Thanks so much for sharing your story.
Right.
This is helping. This helps a lot of others that are interested, that are on the early end of this virus, determining whether they can manage this ailment for good.
Yeah. Well, I listened and again, on the Rocket Time, I'm going to looking at the comments of folks who are trying to rent before. I think anything you can do before you actually take the plunge and put those dollars down is a worthwhile investment of time and even in dollars to check it out before you really go in full time.
Exactly. There's a reason we date before we get married, right?
Exactly.
That's right.
Rent before you buy.
Sometimes the longer you date, the more you learn.
Mike and Mona, thank you so much. Enjoy Fort Myers and be safe, all right?
All right. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Hey, welcome to the Happy Lab, where we noodle on how to live a happier life and generally just try to be a little silly. I don't think we need to try, Nicole.
No, I don't really think we do.
So I have to tell you, Nicole, some of the best memories I have with my children when they were younger are the trailer that, yes, I still own. When they were young, because I can remember Emma with a hammer pounding on rocks with these crazy aviator goggles on. I can remember Spencer catching a fish and holding it up. We have this photo of him holding it up. Maybe I can find it, put it in 6 Shot Saturday. Holding this up with this little tiny fish, but the look on his face was, oh my, he was like old man in the sea. I can remember, playing games with Shauna, and there's like a Scrabble that stacks up. I remember that game. Riding bikes. A lot of great memories from trailers in camping.
Where was the best trip that you took?
Well, we used to go to this RV park near us called Tres Rios, or 3 Rivers. And that was our place. And, once you find a place and you're comfortable with it, then we're trying to get you guys to use our trailer now, right? We got to fix the electrical on it.
Yeah, that's true. We need to do some work on it.
But, having a trailer, falling for the RV virus can be a really good thing if it's right for you. And that's what we're trying to figure out. The point is, it's a vehicle to help you, literally a vehicle to help you create experiences and memories for you, but for others that you love too. I think that's a good way to be happy. However you decide to do that. Okay, let's go set a smart sprint.
On your marks, get set.
And we're off to set a 7-day goal to take a tiny baby step to really rocking retirement. So, Nicole, over the next 7 days, I want you to do this as well. Okay? Because this is a self-exam over the next 7 days related to the RV virus.
Oh, okay.
So you and Clay need to do this self-exam so we can figure out the trailer thing. But I want you to do the self-exam too. Do you have a little bit of the RV virus? Is it starting to take hold? If so, don't ignore it. Start having conversations about it, start writing about it, and really examine if this is something that's going to become a full-blown attack or if it's really something that is moving you to want to create experiences in some ways. So that's your assignment for the next 7 days. Is that clear, Nicole? Did that make sense?
Yes, it absolutely made sense. And thank goodness all of the kids' school stuff is over. So now I have time for this.
Yes. This means you and Clay will have to talk.
That's right. The spring break's coming up. We have a whole week.
So it's funny, Nicole, as we started this series, you said you were looking at content and you went back and found actually an episode on RVs that I did.
Yes, I did. A very old one.
And it was like in the first 5, I think. And you remember the title?
Something like 10 things to think about before you buy an RV. And it was sort of kind of
like 10 reasons not to buy an RV.
Yeah, it was like, don't do it.
Well, that was my experience. And I think this RV virus is one of those things. It's one of those odd illnesses that can hurt you emotionally. It can hurt you financially, but it also can be, if you manage the RV virus, it can actually superpower your retirement. So it's a weird one. It actually could be a great thing, but it can go lots of different directions.
Okay.
So maybe we'll post a link to that. It was an old episode. I don't know how.
Yeah, we should. Well, let me listen to the whole thing again first, and then we'll decide.
Lord knows how I sound on episode 5. I'm not near as polished as I am today.
That's right.
Yes, I'm a pro now. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. Next week, we're going to hear another RV story and start to talk about how you manage this RV virus.
We appreciate you joining us today for this episode of Retirement Answer Man. Be sure to visit rogerwhitney.com/answers to access the Retirement Answer Library with over 30 checklists to help you make the most of the only life you have. Remember, you have more power than you realize to create an amazing life starting today with Retirement Answer Man. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance referenced is historical and no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Have a wonderful day.